Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Do you remember yesterday we had an idea of what we were going to do in the evening? Inquiry, Shosan, people asking their questions. But one of the things we talked about, and I think some of you have spoken to each other about, is it's not just necessarily comfort. There's a greater possibility of sharing things either in small groups rather than a big group. In general, not everybody's like that, but for a lot of people, that's the case. So we thought, why stop now with innovation? We've innovated everything else. So here's what we're going to ask you to do, both the folks online and the folks here. We're going to get into groups of 3 like we've been doing, and you're going to come up with the questions you want to ask us.
Together.
You guys are going to discuss, what are you interested in? What do you think we should ask?
We're going to ask you?
To us, yeah, you're going to ask us. So you're going to gang up on us. It's 3 on 2, a bunch of times. So it's the place you can discuss and talk about the questions you have with just a small group of people, or just things you're interested in, and see what you come up with. And then one or all of you can then bring it forward at some point, however you'd like to do it. Does that make sense to you, what I'm saying? That way you'll have more time to open it up and think about it. It may help you clarify your questions. Yes?
Would you model the inquiry again? I looked online to see if I could replay it, and I didn't find the.
No, they did record it, and what I showed was more or less a formal show song.
Yes. We're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that.
All right.
But we do, because we're sitting here, we do want people to come in front of us and ask the question. So, because we don't have a separate chair.
You know, like in a head student ceremony.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You just come up and bow and ask the question. And in this case, all 3 of you can come if you want. Or all 3 of you, online, you can get together and do it together. You don't have to.
Or you might decide one of the questions was more pregnant than another, and you really want to that one forward.
Or 3 people can bring one question, but you need reinforcements to ask it, So you do it however you want to do it. So, you available?
Yes.
Me too. We're ready for you. Anybody in any of the groups online, anybody here, just let us know and come forward. Yes?
Do I do the formal?
Yeah, come on up. Not to be real formal, but it's good to stand up and actually.
So this is a question that came from one member of our group, and that we have chosen. So the question would be, what is your plan for the transmission of the Dharma in our lineage for the future generations?
That's what we were talking about.
That's what we were talking about.
Exactly what we were talking about. So go ahead. We'll both chime in.
The way everything has evolved at Appamada is organically when the need arises. So now we're at that point where it seems like it's appropriate to think about what are those steps going to look like in our lineage, right, for Dharma transmission. And that's exactly what we're discussing.
So it's alive. Today, in speaking with some of the people who were on the entrustment path, it also came up. So it's very alive right now. So there's no plan we can give you. We know the plan is rising like bread. It's beginning to go into the oven. So that's we're not ignoring it, but we're working to see what shape it might take. The flavor.
Which is exactly what happened when we decided to begin giving entrustment. Same thing.
So what's the second question behind it?
there seems to be some confusion, I feel, inside the Sangha concerning Dharma transmission and trusted teachers. That seems not clear in all the minds in the Sangha, so we thought it could be useful also to clarify that.
What's not clear?
Well, that's clear to me, but maybe the difference between a Dharma transmitted teacher and an entrusted teacher, what they can do or not do, how does it work? Because I know for some people it's not clear.
Sure. Yeah, when someone is entrusted with the Dharma, it suggests that we see in that person a capacity to be in a leadership role, to teach, that they have a strong practice, and they've been dedicated to the Sangha. And
the Sangha sees them that way.
yeah, we're not just like shoving them out. The Sangha sees that they do that. And so we're publicly acknowledging that in a way that holds the fabric of teaching and leadership within the Sangha. Dharma transmission is that, but the three qualities that you were talking about today, I think, are really important.
A very deep spiritual attainment, a very strong dedication to the Sangha and to the development of the Sangha, and a capacity for conveying the Dharma, because they're going to be transmitting it beyond. So that's the responsibility of someone with Dharma transmission, is to transmit the Dharma.
When you're entrusted, you have some responsibilities for teaching and leading the Sangha. If you have Dharma transmission, you have a deep responsibility to make sure it doesn't die. That's what we have. So we have to do what you're saying. That was our vow. That's what we said we would do. It's been transmitted to us, so we have to transmit it. And trusting someone else isn't the transmission. And that's the distinction I think you're asking about.
And the other distinction is that entrusted teachers can't entrust other teachers. So someone with Dharma transmission has to do entrustment. Does that make sense? They can't. Entrusted teachers don't create additional entrusted teachers.
And at this point, also don't do things like jukai or precepts.
Yeah.
You can do the ceremony of completion of the
program,
but not the conveying of the lineage
Right.
papers, because they haven't done the lineage themselves.
Thank you for clarifying that for the Sangha.
Thanks for bringing it forward. I'm sure there's a lot of people who think about these.
The other capacity for someone with Dharma transmission is to start an independent center on their own. So they can lead a center in another place or
Start a sitting group.
start a sitting group on their own, yeah. They're completely independent.
So I'm going to have a little, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'll give you a little background, which was that we sat together. Then we found that we needed to talk first about our experience of the intensive. And then we tried to make a question that we ended up talking about what we thought the teaching was that you've given us already. So it was wonderful, but here's the question. I have a question. On our journey, does triggered reactivity ever cease?
No.
No.
End? Is there an end to it besides dying?
I would say occasions for triggered reactivity become fewer and farther between, and we have more skillful means in meeting them. We recognize what they are, we inflict less suffering on ourselves and others around them. And it's exactly like in the stories of the Buddha, when Mara would show up and the Buddha would say, I see you, Mara. Mara would say, well, you're all by yourself. Aren't you lonesome? Aren't you feeling, did you commit a crime? Don't you have any friends? You're here in the forest, At any moment of vulnerability, this is where this reactivity is likely to show up, right? right? So Mara is sort of the personification of that. And we are able to say, I see you. I see you, Mara.
As we practice more in the ways that Peg is talking about, there are more and more times in which you are not caught by reactivity. If you're a human being, there's going to be some reactivity, some Mara will show up, but you might not be caught by it. And those times when reactivity isn't guiding you and you're not swamped in it, those are nirvanic moments. Nirvana can be thought of as that moment when you're not caught in reactivity of your conditioning. But those are moments. There's not like a time when, okay, now it's all wiped out.
But I will say, when I was in the monastery, I was talking to Hogan one day and I said, you know, when conditioned reactivity starts to fall away, the amount of energy that's released is breathtaking. And that's when we realize how much of our energy is bound up in it and how much it drains away from us. So that when it starts to dissolve and it's not, it shears off, I think, like, you know, those images of calving icebergs, you know, where there's a big piece that just shears off, you know, and I feel like it's kind of like that. And you see, then you find yourself in a situation where you say, hey, that kind of thing used to really make me mad, or that kind of thing used to really upset me, but it doesn't seem to be bothering me right now. So there are more of those moments.
If everything is involved in mutual causality and everything is impermanent, so are those moments. But the quality changes with practice, of course, exactly what we're talking about. The idea that there could be a final, complete, is one of the hardest delusions to deal with.
And it is another grasping idea.
Yeah, another grasping idea that we would,
We
like,
practice
when can I
it,
get
we
to the
get to that
place where I
point.
don't have that anymore?
Yeah.
But that's a grasping for permanence. Really good question.
Yeah.
Are we touching it?
Yes, and I'd just like to add to it, I have huge appreciation for having a context in to experience my reactivities. And then what I found is that when I have felt in my body what that is in my body, then I am able to recognize much lesser reactivities that may happen in a human being. And so that's really quite a gift
Yes,
from
exactly.
Appamada. And I just want to say that is that it's made a big difference in my life based on that. And, you know, even though I grumbled a little bit last night and turned off my video, I recognized by last night that I've been offered another opportunity that I know what to do with now. Thank you.
Another Dharma gate.
Another Dharma gate.
Boundless. I vow to enter them all. Thank you. And Kathy also.
Thank you. This is maybe related. The question came up in our group. I was with Emily and Lynn, and it's how do you deal with difficult conversations and the frustration that might build up around that, and also the resistance to what you think you need to do. And it goes back to perhaps with skillful needs again, skillful means.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any suggestions?
Well, there's two prongs here, at least. There's the relational communication psychological part. When you say, how do you? And that's what we get some version of always. How do you? What do you do about? And we can't actually answer all of those things. This is the background part of the response. But we can say you can become the kind of person who can meet difficulty and not make it more difficult. I don't know how to resolve everything, but I know I can become a kind of a person where I don't add to it and maybe even help it move a little bit. I can not be quite as resistant because I practice, just like we were talking about. So spiritual practice doesn't solve all the problems. You become a kind of a person through your spiritual practice that can meet problems in a different way and not add to them. But it doesn't give you solutions to the problems.
Gives you higher level problems.
I couldn't hear that, what?
It gives you higher level problems.
Oh, I see.
Thank
So
you.
that's background. Because otherwise we get into, it's such a general question, how do you deal with conflict? Well, there's an internal response that the Buddha gave, and there's also a relational one. The internal, when someone asks him what you do about upsetting feelings, said, gaze upon them with kindness and remain still. Which is the Buddha version of unblend from parts that are overwhelming you and look at them with compassion. Realize that, oh, there's a part of me that isn't me. And then when he was asked about this stuff, and they said, why do we fight? He gave a couple of answers there about monks fight because they are attached to views, and a whole list of adherence, and I can't remember them all, and clinging to views. And for ordinary people, it's clinging to sensual pleasures. He didn't say, don't have pleasure, or don't have views. He said, don't cling and have adherence, and there's a list of things, basically clinging to these things. That's the issue.
Fixed views.
Yeah, these views that are off. And those are the things we work with in practice, so we have more capacity for curiosity, and energies can flow through us a little easier. We're not so caught in the inevitable conflict. So we have the necessary suffering, but we don't have the unnecessary suffering that we create on top of it.
We tend to think that conflict is anomalous, that it's some interruption in the relationship, but it's actually the course of the relationship. And all of the fabric of the relationship, the strength of the relationship is built through moving through difficulties, coming out the other side, sort of.
Repairing ruptures.
Yeah, repairing ruptures, misunderstandings. It's not that if you have a good relationship, you don't have those things. It's that you have a good way of negotiating them.
Yeah, you navigate them differently. It's like you wouldn't have a body that never had pain. And it's like, oh, there's something wrong, I have pain. No, it's something to pay attention to. It's a signal, and you learn to work with it. So, it's maybe very unsatisfying, but this is our response.
Well, mostly what you encounter is others who don't necessarily share a practice, who are wedded to their views, right? And that's part of what the difficulty is. Yeah, so there are two aspects to this question, one of which is rhetorical, and the other one of which is spiritual. So the rhetorical question is, how do I have a conversation in such a way that, I don't agitate and create more conflict, and that's more of a, how do I do this rhetorically? But what you really want to know is, how do I meet that from this place, from Buddha heart and mind? How do I meet this?
Spiritual practice doesn't answer your questions. It questions your answers. That backward step. So it's like, oh, I seem to react the same way. It doesn't help you figure out the other person. You have to figure out this person.
I can feel myself hardening into defending myself and making myself right and the other person wrong.
And I can feel the suffering because you've learned to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we go on and on.
You can.
Yes.
So, our question is, we've talked a lot about the forms and the theme is the forms for this intensive, and we've talked about that they're not rules and they're not the right way and the wrong way and this and that. And we were wondering if you could talk about what is the sort of affirmative yes behind the forms. What is we know what they're not, but what's the yes? What's the affirmative reason for them, or the affirmative life-giving whatever it is behind them? That's great. Okay.
Scaffolding for liberation.
Can't hear you.
Scaffolding for liberation.
And Peg's going to talk more about this tomorrow, actually.
Okay.
It's right on the money. I'm not trying to defer the question.
Okay.
I'm just saying you're going to get more
Yeah.
about this very thing. Remember when she said a moment ago, when you're not caught in reactivity and your conditioning and your karmic activity, that there's an immense amount of energy that's freed up? The forms are like a channel, because otherwise we're just doing our habit patterns, and this interrupts those. When Suzuki Roshi first was teaching the forms to the rough and tumble kids, in San Francisco, he said, "You Americans are really interesting. You like to do your own thing." Members of hippies. And he said, "I can't tell you apart. But when I ask you all to do exactly the same thing, then I can see you." Because when he says, "This is how you bow," and then he sees all the different ways people try to do that one thing, you see the karmic effect, you see the person. But when everybody's just kind of doing whatever, you don't get. So that's part of the scaffolding, is you get to see yourself and channel the energy in a certain way, rather than just using it the way you normally do. And it wakes you up. That's why he used the image of a retreat being like putting a snake in a bamboo tube. Every place you try to, the wall is right there. Not to control you, not to hurt you, but you realize all the ways you try to wiggle out. And you start seeing, oh, this is what I do.
And here, I think in particular, we have found a position that is neither total chaos, just come and do whatever you feel, nor is it as, I would say, inflexible as the more formal traditional models, which I think of in any tradition as sort of fundamentalist, right? Like, we're going to adhere to these, and it's regardless, has nothing to do with actual people inhabiting them. So, so here, what we've tried to do, and what Joko started to do, and which we have, perpetuated and amplified, is to provide enough scaffolding so that there's a way for people to be together harmoniously, and to understand that they belong to something that's deep and profound and meaningful, and that they support each other in it. And the forms are one of the ways that we can support each other, right? Yeah.
And there's another part of the yes. When once Joko was asked, "How do I know if I'm doing the right practice?" What did she say? Are you becoming a larger container for life energy to flow? So is there the yes to life? Or are you becoming more narrow, more dour, more rigid? So that flexibility and vitality piece, this is about the restoration of vitality, joy, and flexibility, and aliveness. So it looks like it might be constricting, but really it's the way to be free. What are you free of? Personal identity. You offer yourself to something that isn't you.
But one of the dangers that the Buddha talked about is adherence to forms and rituals, like too much attention being paid to the forms and the rituals and not enough of the heart of practice.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to find a balance, and we have to not, there's a tendency in systems to move towards more control as needed. Like we need to button this down so that there are fewer and fewer incidents like this one that just happened, And so there's a tendency, that sort of command and control tendency that we have to always be attentive to, so we don't, start moving in the wrong direction. But also, the other direction is people get sloppy with the forms, and then we're not really holding that container well, with care, right? So that's what I think are always our sort of balancing act is in the Sangha.
Thank you for your question.
You wanna go with me? Would you wanna come? Well, okay. I mean, why not?
The triple treasure.
It's fun to have a team. We all wrote down separate questions, but then about what we're all struggling with, but we thought they all kind of blend in with this one line from the Fukan Zazengi. Fukan Zazengi. If you make one misstep, you go astray from the way directly before you. And our question is, how do we know when we've gone astray? Because it makes it sound like the stakes are pretty high. How can we all be Buddhas naturally and be making mistakes as Buddhas all the time? But here they're saying you make one misstep and you miss it all.
And how do you not make it into straight and narrow?
How do you know if you've gone astray?
Are you suffering?
All the time.
That's the evidence.
But also this is partly the function of Sangha and teachers. We help each other.
It doesn't mean all is lost. It just means as you're suddenly caught in something, there's a a tiny deviation over time broadens. But if you catch it, you haven't lost everything. What's surprising is how little it takes for us to be caught in something. When I was doing Tangario at Tassajara, and Tangario is when you're entering the monastery and you come and you sit for 5 days as the request to enter. It used to be that people would actually go to the temples, knock on the door and be rejected and blah, blah, blah. And now
Steps.
you're going to be in the practice period at Tassajara, but the first 5 days, if you're a newcomer, you're just going to sit. And literally you sit all day for 5 days, you go to bed at night, you get back, and you don't do anything else, and the monastery goes on around you. I mean, you don't have to not move, but it's... So one of my really good friends who started at the Austin Zen Center with me, and I knew him from the beginning, before there was even that in him, was in Tangario with me. And so when it was time for us to stand up and proceed out of the Zendo, for example, it was very, very deep, but if I looked up and our eyes met just for a second, there was so much history and love and care. It would just kind of blow us out because we're in such a, and you realize, it doesn't take very much. The care and tenders were fine. It's just that we're more sensitive tuning forks than we think. And we learn to take care of it. So yeah, there are missteps, there are little things we're going to do, but it's the coming back, which we've said in several ways, it's the most important thing. All is not lost. It's just that that's why Appamada is important, diligent care, because we're just more sensitive than you think. And I don't mean sensitive like emotionally sensitive, just our systems.
There's a way to think about it in reverse, and maybe might be helpful. So you have, for example, an alcoholic face down in the gutter. If you go back in history, there was a point where that person took that first drink and thought, wow, this is awesome, And so that's the point where that path deviated, right? So you can see there can be a catastrophic outcome, right? And so part of it is we do have an inner guidance system. We know when something is unwholesome. We know when something is unhealthy. That's basically what it's talking about. You know, like we can tell when what we're doing is beneficial to ourselves and others, and when it's likely not, but more self-interested. We practice so that we get more aware. You know, a lot of the times we like don't want to notice exactly that this is not that wholesome. You know, then the next thing you know, all the Oreos are gone. So, you know, it's that first Oreo.
Do y'all wanna just help? I feel
Just
like
touching the stuff you're interested in.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah, it doesn't mean like you take that one, you do that one sin and now you're doomed.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of thought. That's what a lot of people think.
But that bad road starts somewhere. There is that first step that's off the path.
Sandra was talking about homeostasis
Yeah.
and about course correction, like.
Right,
Mhm.
right, exactly. Exactly.
The Buddha was very optimistic. He said, all of this is workable.
And Peg and Flint,
Yes.
we have a question from another group, and my group included Michael, which was so nice to get to spend time with them, and with Nancy and Emily, I think. Serenity was in the group. I've been in several groups, and I'm having a hard time keeping everybody separated to group.
Good to hear your voice and see your face.
Well, it's nice to be here. It's nice to see your face, both of you and everybody. The question was how do you pick a teacher? And I wanted to expand that a little bit and make it a little bit more specific. You know, in the old days, there was Peg and Flint. And then now there's Peg and Flint, who are pretty Hawaii and Chicago are not local. You're not in the Zendo. You're available by appointment, and there it's limited. But we also have, Zen mentors, and we have entrusted teachers in addition to head teachers. So there's a range of resources that has been fostered and offered to us. And if we want to have a relationship with a specific teacher, how do we get to know each one of these individuals, and who decides if it's a one-on-one, or does the teacher decide? Does the student decide? How does this work in this more?
It is such a great question, because it can be confusing, you know, but
Not everybody has the same path from that.
yeah, I encourage people to meet with all of the teachers, and to get a sense of whether they feel a special spark with one of them. Then they might have a one-on-one relationship. But in the meantime, it's perfectly appropriate to see any and all of the teachers at different times, you know?
And access the Zen mentors.
And make, you know, all of these resources are available. So make good use of them.
What often happens is over time, there's a natural affinity that starts to show up.
Yeah. Or
And
sometimes
then
you
the
never
people
know.
negotiate that.
Yeah.
So we have to go shopping.
Maybe, you might put it that way, but it's really more like, to me, the question is, how do I foster this aspiration that I have? And where can I find some support and nourishment in fostering that aspiration? So it might, you know, when I met Joko, as I always say, it was like, you know, putting my bare hands on an electric fence. I felt this charge immediately, and I knew without any question that she was my teacher. It doesn't always happen that way. And sometimes, you know, Joko used to say, everyone wants to know how you find a teacher, how do you find a Zen teacher? I just say, look around you and find the person who annoys you the most. If you have teenagers, that's even better, you know? Because it's not necessarily going to be the person who makes you feel good. It might be someone who challenges you in certain ways that feel uncomfortable. And for some teachers, that's their style and that's their gift.
Or you see in them something that is inspiring, but also includes perplexing.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? That is something that I'm drawn to, and I don't even know what it is, what I
Yeah.
see in them. But I can't, it's a little bit like falling in love. It's kind of an attraction, you know, it's like, what the hell is that?
Maybe we need a Zen teacher app like Tinder.
That's right.
That's maybe that's what we need.
And then it'd be the slap, you know, the pussy. Everybody's so different about how it happens. And then if you do find yourself somehow relating more regularly, or there's something seems to be there, then bring that up and say, you know, does the other person feel it? Are they willing to meet with you? Are they willing to form a relationship that is in the service of the Dharma, not in the service of ego, in the service of practice, not in the service of just supporting your conditioning?
But they won't have any way to know whether you are serious about being their student unless you ask them directly. So there's a certain point at which there's that kind of exchange. I would like you to be my teacher. And then there's a commitment, a really deep commitment that's created there. Yeah.
And there's a bit of a complication that's different from if you come to Appamada, and Flint and Peg are the head teachers. Everybody now who is an entrusted teacher or a Zen mentor has been my friend.
Mhm.
So it's a really different, there's a level of interpersonal, I don't know.
Yeah.
The balance is not the same. It's just really different.
Well, you have a history that
Yeah.
predates them becoming teachers. That's basically what that is. So
Yeah.
the question is, can you see the teacher in them that has flourished? Our entrusted teachers have been with us for 20 years.
Long
And
time.
it's
And
not
they
trivial.
may be more like your spiritual friend, that's true, but there could be something else there, especially if you engage forums. Like if I'm hanging out with somebody because I know them, and even though we have a serious conversation, if we go in the Dokusan room and we engage the forums, it's like putting on another hat. Like now we're in another realm.
Mm-hmm.
So you might play golf with your doctor, you know, but when you have your feet up in the stirrups, it's a different ballgame. Sorry to put it so crudely. Is this recorded?
Well, thank you.
I'm glad you're bringing it up. It's because that's an ongoing question. That's really good.
Yeah, it is.
You're all touching on things that are very alive in the Sangha, you know? And you've been around long enough that these are well thought out, you know, you've been through it, you've seen a lot of things.
But the value in that is that you can bring really tough questions to our entrusted teachers, which help them grow too. So in that encounter, it goes to a different level because you have some history together. And you can help expand their capacities because it's experienced and it's experienced practitioners that help our teachers.
And like us, that doesn't mean we'll have an answer. What we have is a willingness to engage at a level that's different than the social interaction. And that willingness and capacity to be the container is the real gift, not that there's an answer. Some secret book that we have or something. Oh, that there were.
That's the last thing the Buddha said. I have kept nothing from you. Nothing has been hidden from you. There are no secret teachings.
We have 3 questions. Do you want that many?
Whatever you want, we'll take.
Okay.
You're gonna make the person with the broken wing.
We'll make her legs strong. So one question is,
just ask it in a slightly different way than I usually was gonna say. So how do you, I'm asking how.
Start there.
What is the process by which one lets go of things? I know it's a gradual thing, and it seems like there's a time that it takes to let go of.
What things? A car?
No, I was talking more about role or letting go of something in your life that's important.
Mhm.
That kind of thing. And for that discernment, you know, it seems, I'll say what I think. So it seems like you have to be with it and sit with it, but in my case anyway, ambivalence is big in my life. And so how does one deal with the ambivalence? Is it a matter of sitting until something you lean one way, or do you have these ideas about it?
But letting go, I'm not so good. It's like, I don't know how to let go. I mean, you let go or you don't. But letting be is, I think, the entry point, which is sort of what you already just said. Let it be and be with it. What you're letting go of is the grasping. It may still be there. So you let it be and turn toward it and become intimate with it and see you don't know.
Right. And that time of doing that is really hard. I mean, it's really
It
uncomfortable.
might be. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's not. It can be.
I remember if it was Locke Kelly who said, you know, we're always trying to sit and figure the thing out, right? So figure out how to deal with it or figure out how to fix it. And so his practice is you sit with it and it's all that about my taxes. You know, it's like a tangle. All that about this person I'm mad at. You know, you just sit with that bundle, that tangle. You just hold that. You're not trying to figure it out, sort it out, untangle it. This is the tangle. It's the human tangle. Yeah.
So let go, let be.
Yeah.
Be.
How do you not take yourself so seriously as a Zen student?
Stay tuned.
So could you?
One of the things-
for the online people?
How do you not take yourself so seriously as a Zen student?
First, you have to notice that you're taking yourself seriously. Seriously. And you already do. And that's why I'm playing with it a little bit. Because it's, if you start noticing how seriously you're taking it, it's like really serious, it's kind of funny. And we all do it. So the next for me, since I tend to get serious sometimes, is to look at what's this in the service of? What really wants to come here that I think serious is going to help? And usually the seriousness isn't, that's like a narrowing down, like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
But what if I let it be differently?
And burdening.
And don't try to be different. Just step back for a minute and hold the seriousness. Turn toward the seriousness instead of be the serious. Find the Buddha heart in me and then look at the serious. Like, you're really serious, dude. What's going on? You're really trying to get something. There's something there. There's a want. I know what that is.
I used to say we can't really proselytize in our tradition because what do we have to offer? You can come sit with a group of people facing the wall in an uncomfortable position until your knees are falling off. And if you get really good at it, we'll shave your head, dress you in black, and wrap you up like a burrito. How is that? Come on.
It's hard to sell.
Need a marketing. So there are people on that list who would go for that, but that's why we're not on the street corners with our leaflets.
At Tassajara, in the most serious, the most formal training center, at certain times during the practice period, the most cherished times are skit night.
Skit night.
They have they make up little dramas and little productions and do all kind of things. I remember once it was in the summer, it was the 4th of July, And so they come with those trolley things you take when you go to the garden, you have to take all the stuff, you know? And so they have one and they've decorated it all up and they have Blanche standing in it and they've made a torch and she has the thing like they're carrying her down this dirt path, you know.
I like it. Can we do that here? This could be fun.
One of my friends, when I was in Japan, we had a night like that. And so we came up and we made a little play where she came in to buy shoes and I was a shoe salesman because it was the Sono shoe. The Sono shoe is the whole big Vatican thing. And so we enacted the thing to bring her shoes just like they would do at Sojiji in the formal things. And I was holding it like this and bringing her shoes and making fun of it all. You gotta have fun or it's no fun.
This is a how-to, but okay. How to work with bodily tension. I'm sorry. Yeah, how do you work with bodily tension during zazen?
What did you learn so far?
Turn towards it.
Acknowledge it.
Yeah,
Turn
acknowledge
toward
it. Well, you didn't say this or you didn't say this, but don't judge. Like, what's wrong?
Right, or if you do notice that's tension, judging is tension.
That's even more tension.
There's more tension. Oh, look, I'm adding more tension. That's interesting.
So
Be curious,
be
and
curious.
that step back and notice.
And
And if
be
you
with
need
it.
to shift your posture, like I realized, oh, the tension is a signal. Tension is a signal. What is the signal of? It's like, you know, what is it telling me? And sometimes you can notice, or it will tell you, and sometimes you can't, but you can pay attention to it and be open and willing, see if your body will tell you. It's telling you something already. This feels tense or hurt. Wonder what else I might find out.
You said something before about being kind. I thought that was helpful too, because
Gaze upon it with kindness and remain still.
I'm not doing something wrong. And that's,
Yeah, some kind.
Curiosity instead of
Sometimes I'll try and recover the thought that preceded the tension. Oh, it's my mother again, you know, or something at work, you know. But sometimes I'll just ask if that tension had words, what would it be telling me? So, yeah. And so that's the curiosity piece. If this had words, what would it be saying, this tension in my shoulder?
or as I sit and I'm breathing, it's like, breath, would you go there and see what happens? Breathe into the space and see. This is a little more active, but it's kind of curious. Sometimes I'll notice there's a tension. Now somewhere else in my body, there's freedom. Oh, but I'm really at ease there. And I'm really tense here. And then see if I can have them connect. Or they talk to each other. That's a little more complicated, but that'd be very good.
It's all kind of an investigation.
Just an investigation. Instead of
a
a
framework.
judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah, what thoughts are associated with this? How long can I bear this? Is the bell going to ring soon? Did she die? You know? Did she die? That's just my thoughts, I mean.
She had to, it's been an hour and a half.
Thank you.
Can I have one little tiny offering that Flint
Yes,
gave
of
us?
course.
When he had Kuan Yin pour the hot liquid down our heads and onto our shoulders, that is a nice visual to put onto your
You
tent.
can always use that.
Well, that's actually a meditation technique, which is the idea that there's a warm golden cream that's coming down from the very top of your head. It's pouring down over your forehead, over these little muscles of
It's
the eyes.
penetrating the tissues.
Just penetrating the tissue, pouring down. But that's an actual, ancient meditation technique.
Thanks for offering it, it's so great.
Or you can start at the bottom with the paraffin, like a good pedicure.
Yeah.
Hot wax.
inviting them. You said welcome, but you're actually inviting them.
Please come with me.
I kind of like it when all of you are here.
Yeah, me too.
So our question is about our study of the Fukan Razengi. Learn the backward step that turns your light inwardly to illuminate yourself. You spoke about that earlier, that it's not paying attention to what's going on in your head and working out your stuff and becoming minutely aware of your patterns. It's something else. Can you all speak to that?
A little bit. And one of the things I wanted to make a point about is so many people think that this is about going inside. You know, and it's not that. If you literally take a step backward, you don't end up inside. You end up making a space or going in a different, it's about going in a different direction than you would normally habitually go.
The way I think about that inward step that he's talking about there is not like now study my thoughts and feelings, but it's and the way I would put it is to study the self-making. How am I making this a self? Right? So I might be checking out in the grocery store, I might be driving a car, I might be cleaning my house, I might be chopping carrots. So the backward step is to see, how am I making a self?
That would go forward.
Yeah. In a conversation, I'm defending myself. I'm projecting how cool I am. I'm, trying to be a good student. I'm, like that's self-making, right? So we're casting sort of the light on this process of self-making, justifying ourselves, defending ourselves, making sure that we look good, making sure that other people approve of us. That is how I think of it. So when I read that, it's about, because there is no self if you really are looking. So, but we're always constructing the self of this. I'm the self that keeps a clean house. I'm the self that, if somebody drops in, they're not gonna say, how messy is this? It's like there's a whole, organization of self-making.
And this may be a little silly example, but it's like, in movies, sometimes there'll be some activity going on, and then one of the characters steps out of it and comments and can see what's going on. In
Like
it,
a narrator.
like a narrator,
Yeah.
It's not exactly, but it's kind of like, and then it's illuminating. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
The observer.
Another example that goes on with movies, how you're watching the movie, you're completely enraptured. Like you're crying or you're mad or that, and then like Peg gets up and says, excuse me, I gotta go to the bathroom. And suddenly you're like back in the room. You were in that world. The illusion of the self-centered dream. And then suddenly
Step back.
you're like sitting there in your seat, there's a bunch of people and there's flashes on a flat surface and you have to get out of the way and you spill your Coke. You're not in it anymore. We're in it. That's the self. You're like, we're in this thing, and then we like, whoa.
We don't even know we're in it until we step back.
That's right.
That's why.
How do you not be the self that's stepping back and watching?
How do you what?
Not be the self that's stepping back and watching. Oh.
What's wrong with the self that's stepping back and watching?
It's a self.
What's wrong with that?
Well, I thought we were being a not self.
Don't worry about that so much. Just practice the stepping back.
Looking, observing, looking what's going on.
The worry that you're going to get it wrong is the selfing. That's the selfing in that point. Yeah. Oh darn, I'm stepping back and like.
And the ideal that there's a right way to do it is also.
Yeah.
And that somehow you have to latch on to the right way to do it.
So when the Buddha said, gaze upon it with kindness and remain still, he didn't mean just not move. Like heart to it and don't get busy selfing. Be still.
Such good questions. Seriously, you know, such good questions.
Is it okay for the camera?
So,
She speaks up.
Are we supposed to say we have a question?
No, just go ahead and ask the question.
Okay.
That's the request.
Okay. What is the difference between embodiment, a feeling, and a sensation?
Why do you ask?
Because you can, because you can embody or do everything that you're supposed to do, but you have no feeling and sensation, so you're just doing it because you're supposed to do it.
So embodiment, sensation, and feeling?
Yes.
A sensation is part of your perceptual apparatus. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, you have sensations. That's just data. That data, eye consciousness, smells, you know, senses, that's data. Those senses come in and you begin to construct some reality in your body based on that sensory data. Some of those things that happen inside your body are feelings. Either physical or emotional. You know, these are the skandhas, the heaps of stuff that start to make a self. And it happens because you have a body. Those are the three things you're asking about.
well, and it's a little confusing because in Buddhism, when we talk about feeling, we're talking about positive, negative, or neutral.
Yeah, we're not talking about emotions.
It's just with contact, some kind of contact between the senses and the world, right? We have an immediate experience.
This way, or
The feeling is that it's positive, negative, or neutral, right? So even amoeba have this. It's hardwired into living beings.
sensory data makes those feel.
But if
It
what you're
happens because you have a
talking,
body.
if what you're talking about is emotion states, that's another thing entirely called formations, and it includes thoughts, emotions, you know, all of the mix, ideas, planning, memories, all of the mix, it's sort of the conceptual part of it. So Joko used to say that emotions are just a physiological change and the ideas we attach to it. So
The ideas that we attach to it, the ones that are important are the ones we believe. It's like you have a thought and you actually believe it.
Yeah, I guess it's the confusion for me, and I'll be the one that says it's confusing for me, is how do I know if I'm embodying something, or is it a feeling or a sensation?
But that's the part I was confused about. I'm not sure what you're asking exactly.
I know, it's just me.
No, it's fine. I want to know. Because when you say embody, you're asking something very specific that I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so.
You mean like when you just act in a certain way? That's what you're calling embodiment?
Yeah, well, like, and I've asked this question in every group I've been in, and Rosemary had a good thing that kind of helped me, good example that kind of helped me understand it a little bit. She embodies her vow when she goes and helps her neighbor buy groceries, because her neighbor needs groceries.
That's an expression of her vow to be a kind person.
Is that embodying the vow?
It could be, or she could just be doing it because she thinks she'll be a bad person if she doesn't do it, or she should
Okay.
do it.
That's the nuance right there.
Is your
That's what I'm
is your
confused.
action and your intention in harmony?
Yes, okay, yeah, and so then you're embodying it. But you could have I could have a feeling. I'm just gonna continue sitting with it. You gave me some good information.
So I think what you're concerned about is, can you do a form and have no real emotional investment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, and all of us have done this at times because we were distracted about something else, or about we have to bow, but we're not fully present, and that's what the forms are good for, right? Because they're that baseline, and then realize, oh, I came in, I stepped into the Sando, I bowed, but I wasn't even thinking about entering this space, right? I was just a million miles away.
Like when you drive 10 miles, you don't remember, like,
Yeah.
was I even awake?
That actually isn't a problem.
Okay,
It isn't.
okay.
You know, if you keep bowing, every time you bow, it's gonna be some different expression. It's gonna be, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm here, my job is just sucky right now, you know? I don't have time for this, I'm so busy today, I really shouldn't even be here. Like, every single one of them is gonna have some, but they're all you. It's all the expression of who you are. It's just, flustered Buddha, it's just sleepy Buddha, it's just fully present Buddha.
Start to realize all of life flows through every form. If you keep doing it over and over and over, you'll have every experience within every, and then you think, oh, that's like everything.
Okay. So we had a Zen teacher who came by through Austin Zen Center, practicing for many, 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 many decades. And he was talking about when he was in the monastery, been a monastic for 15 years. And he went to his teacher and he said, I'm so filled with self-loathing, I don't know what to do. I look in the mirror, I just am so filled with self-loathing. It's 15 years of practice, And his teacher gave him this practice: do 108 bows every day and say, I forgive you. And he said, for 2 weeks, it was like, full bows, I forgive you.
And when he came up, it was like,
Yeah. But do 108 bows, it'll do something to you. And after 2 weeks, he broke down completely.
And he was saying, please forgive me.
Thank you.
So it's not a bad practice, actually, but when I do it, I don't do it, I forgive you, because between us, there's nothing to forgive. But I do say, I thank you. And it's always surprising to me who shows up. Sometimes it's my fourth grade teacher. But 108 bows a day will change you.
For how long?
Keep on wanting to know,
There's a gaining idea in this. Well, I'm gonna do it long enough to get pretty good.
So are you saying I forgive you with each vow?
Yes. Yeah, so finding time to do 108, it doesn't take as long as you might think. It takes roughly about 15 minutes. And when I was doing it, because I had a lot of jobs in the monastery, I was doing it in 4 sections at a time, like 4 at a time.
And why 108?
That's a magic number in Buddhism. There are 108 beads on a mala. It has to do with, I'm not gonna get to 108, but the 6 sense organs, the 6 sense sources of contact, the 6 sense consciousness that arise from the contact. It's just it's a litany of the numerical things, like that.
Abhidharma.
Yeah, and it comes out to 108. So if someone dies, you do 108 bells. It's just this kind of a magic number in Buddhism.
Heard from everyone online?
And did we get everybody? Maybe everybody's been spoken for now.
Or they've fallen asleep.
5 minutes for refuge.
Oh.
Before the refuges.
You know what we could do? We get reset up and do the refuges.
We totally, this is the thing. We totally should do like 30 seconds of Kinhin and 30 seconds of Sitting.
I thought you were gonna say
Okay.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We're gonna set ourselves up, set this window back up. We're gonna get ready for and then we're gonna do 9 bows.
Yes.
And you can do them standing if you want to do standing, or you're gonna do full bows if you want. At San Francisco Zen Center, in their services, you don't do 3, you do 9. Because teaching forms, people ask Suzuki-Roshi, why do we have to do 3 bows? And he said, oh, I don't know, maybe, you know, you're married, maybe you should do 9. That would be helpful. And they said, oh, okay. So, you know, it seems like you Americans kind of need more, you know? And so for now, if you're the doshi, you know, you're doing 9 bows instead of 3. Now I remember trying to keep the count.
Yeah.
Everybody in the assembly does 9 bows.
Everybody.
And so when you go to city center, that's what you'll encounter.
Yeah, Zen aerobics.
Yeah. I forgot that, and then when I was there,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, they're still going, okay.
That's why on the one before the last one, it makes that noise, you know, when it's time, oh, this is the last one.
It lets people know.
Just tell everybody.
Because they lose count.
So let's set up the Zendo and unwind and prepare yourselves for the residue.